I remember being a teenager in 2006 and 7, also 2008, all years with absolute loads of banger AAA games. So it's a bit weird, because now, for years, everyone's been asking, where are the AAA games? I mean, why is Capcom the only major developer releasing like a major title? As of this showcase season, we've found them. We've got platform flagships, long-established franchises, hugely anticipated sequels, even brand new AAA IP, but there's one major problem. All of them coming out at once, pretty much within an 8-week window. There are dozens of games, they're all going to cannibalize each other's audiences, and they're all doing that. They're all taking on that cost because they want to avoid the threat of the biggest game of the year, GTA. And that means that the end of 2026 is going to be a bloodbath for new game releases, unless you're Barbie, because apparently Barbie is one of the only IPs brave enough to fight Grand Theft Auto. The whole month of November 26 has very few games scheduled. The Digital Eclipse Barbie Rewind is there, the remaster of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is there, and then there's GTA 6. And the only game in the calendar after GTA 6 is a Gothic 3 console port. November is just a barren wasteland where no major publisher dares release because they don't want to get caught in the void around the biggest game of this year. I mean, you hear the phrase, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Take a look at the release calendar. You can see that phrase visually. And when we extend the calendar further, it seems to be the case right through until mid-January. Almost no one wants to risk their business against the guaranteed marketing and hype winner of that time, which is obviously going to be GTA. And I don't blame them. But as the Summer Games Fest showcases have shown us, that's created a real problem for the rest of the industry. And a real problem for loads of us, because we're going to have months with so many games that we won't really be able to afford to buy them. It's kind of crazy. And that's all because of the industry's collective gambit. What if, instead of fighting GTA, they instead decide to all fight over the same 8 weeks leading into November? I'm sure nothing will go wrong with that. From August 27th to October 23rd, there will be more than 30 AAA, AA, or otherwise major game releases. But to get a sense of what a number like that really means, I'll put it this way. Within an 8-week stretch, we're going to get Call of Duty, Wolverine, Control Resonant, The Blood of the Dawnwalker, Onimusha, Ace Combat, and many, many more, all competing alongside early access graduations for games like Valheim and RuneScape Dragon Wilds. And that's not even counting the indie games. God help the indie games. They're really in for a rough time. Every showcase that we've just seen has more and more games releasing in the September and October block, and everyone knows why. Independently, all those publishers knew that GTA 6 was launching in November. That's the core logic of all of this, and it's the same one we saw when all of the indie devs fled from the launch of Hollow Knight Silksong. And it's why everyone usually does a smaller version of this dance with the yearly Call of Duty releases. And it's all because basically, it doesn't matter if your game is good when the cultural juggernaut lands nearby and dwarfs your entire sales window. But now, all of these games are showing up at the same time, fighting with each other, and that's probably going to hurt the industry. What we can expect then is that some of those games are going to move. They're going to be able to find money somewhere to make it through to 2027, but some will not. And that means that when we get to September, we are going to see a bloodbath. Simple question for you. How many games do you buy per year? Because even before the economy took a nosedive and buying games became something you, do instead of buying food, this was always going to be messy. Circana's data shows that only 4% of players in the US buy more than one game per month, and more than 60% never buy more than 2 games per year. There's what we think the games industry is as big enthusiasts. And then there's what it actually is within, civilization, I guess. But what those numbers mean is you're likely not going to be buying more than one of those 30 plus games. You're probably not going to buy more than 2 games in total this year. Maybe not you're probably an enthusiast if you're watching this video, but by and large, that's what the majority of gamers actually do. And unfortunately, as money gets tighter for loads of people, the biggest games are likely to win out, because they're cultural events. They're the ones everyone's already waiting for. Because most of these games are launching at $60 or $70, and that means people will tend to go for the franchise they recognize before anything else. For many people, that often feels like the least risky option, and that's important when they're spending their money. And because of that, player sentiment does matter more than ever. Any hint that a game isn't worth your time is ammunition for the competition. And then there's the other problem: time. Most people who play games aren't going to get through one of those games before we hit November, and that's only if you're spending money in new games, because the chaos that's about to unfold goes way beyond just spending money on premium games. Now, to explain that, last December, brand new games couldn't compete with a GTA Online update. That might be shocking news, but it comes from Ampere Analysis, it was flagged by the game business, and it's insane. The churn data is just brutal. 15.5% of new GTA Online players with that September update came from Battlefield. 12.3% came from Call of Duty. But it's not just games like them. Even long-term live services like Minecraft, Fortnite, and Roblox weren't in a better state. Fortnite lost 500,000 players who didn't come back the next month. Not purely, but certainly a major factor was that there was something new to catch their attention. And that new thing was an update to a 12-year-old game. Now, the full sequel to that game lands in November, right as every September release is trying to hold on to its players. So even if you're a September game that maybe has a live element, and even if that live element is relatively successful, you're still going to lose loads of your people. Kind of rough for Marathon, actually, now that I think about it. What that means is that releasing early does not mean you escape GTA. It just means that the collision hits your second month instead of your first month. And attention will be the greatest battleground at the end of the year. Marketing reach, streamer access, review periods, all of those things are needed by each one of these games. And for the most part, all at the same time. Every major streamer and channel is going to be pushed towards talking about GTA because there'll be marketing spend there. But not only that, it's also where the views are going to be, given how big that game is almost certainly going to be. That means you'll hear about it whether or not you care. Now, in September and October, the question then is how much bandwidth any one game can take up. Smaller games in niche genres that require more investment, like say strategy titles, they could fail to break through into the mainstream. They will have to rely on their enthusiast audiences actually turning up, which is no guaranteed thing. But of course, the mainstream games are all also competing for the same general attention as well. And of course, that is compounding on one of the largest struggles gaming faces right now, which is discoverability difficulties. We talked about that in a video recently, and now we're going to see the problem magnified by dozens of major releases all hitting at once. And in that noise, a good game with a quiet launch will fail in exactly the same way a bad one does. And I get you may be yelling at the screen right now, calling out the obvious answer here. Just delay the games! What are we doing? Why are we doing this thing that appears to be something that'll hurt the overall industry? Is there not a better way we can spread this out so that teams take less financial pain? And hey, is this not the best excuse to just delay? To give devs more time to work in these games, meaning that when they come out, they'll be better for everyone. But there's no easy win here. That's not really the case, and that's because even doing a delay has its own cost. Let's talk delays. Some games are already fleeing into next year. There's Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis, which has been delayed till February 27. Xbox, of course, got the ball rolling by delaying Fable into that same month, quote, so it can have the dedicated moment it deserves. I mean, it's a bit of a PR phrase, but man, it does kind of tell you everything you need to know, right? But of course, 2027 is quite some time away. Not everyone will be able to afford that. I don't mean customers, I mean like game companies, because funnily enough, they do actually release games to get revenue, and sometimes they may actually need that revenue. But here's the problem. You could ship after GTA, but not 2027. Well, that puts you into December, and December isn't really an option because then you'll be past a lot of the bulk of holiday spending, and no one really buys games in January. February does kind of work, but February only works until it also fills up with games. And for February, we've got Metro, Fable, Tomb Raider, and Persona 4 Revival. If devs wait too long to move, then we'll be in the same position all over again. And realistically, going past February is even less of an option for most. You see, those who move to February are effectively asking for nearly 6 more months of funding from their parents before they start to make any money. That's kind of brutal, and it will not have been in their initial budgets. And most publishers are not Nintendo. They don't sit on finished games for months or years waiting for the perfect release window. Most developers finish a game desperately hoping that they meet their sales projections, and then they try to fund another game. Realistically, while you could do a 6-month delay, how are you going to insulate the finances from that? Are you going to have to lay people off just to make the numbers work for 2 more quarters? That's the kind of questioning and decision making that actually impacts this shit, and maybe especially at a AAA scale. And that is a system that just can't really survive moments like this. I can almost guarantee then that every single game publisher and developer is in meetings right now, all deciding what they're going to do around the September crush. Not all of them can budge. Some games are simply going to reach a point where they cannot afford further delays. They'll just have to release into competitive windows where they may or may not get the sales that they need, because to them, there's literally no other option. It could even just be a case of definitely we go bust or have to do major layoffs, or we have an imperfect release timing, but one that might still get us what we need. That'll be the thinking. So we could see games coming out too early, we could see them underperform, we could see layoffs, we could even see studios close. Now, we are going to see games that may be perfectly great experiences, but we may see some of those experiences be cut short without the further support that could have helped them rebound. Because any revivals that could happen in month 2, or any, nice little growth curve, that's going to be hurt by GTA sucking all the oxygen out of the room. And long term, even as we finally get a surge of AAA games, the surge of AAA games that we've been missing out on for a long time, it will mean that some franchises and studios are going to have to struggle to survive. But do you know what's also struggling to survive? The memory capacity of Valve employees, because it appears they're being dragged before court, shown their own emails, and then saying that they don't remember the emails. It's a little bit weird, and you can learn about it in this video next.